She's your responsibility, not mine. Her voice snapped like a pencil in a quiet room. The air in the hotel conference suite turned thick, the hum of the projector flickering as faces around the oval table shifted, wary. Across from her, the man with his work-calloused hands resting on the chair arms didn't move. He blinked. "If you have something to prove, do it now," she said, gaze darting to the assistant beside her. "Open that file." In the hush, the assistant's hands shook against the glass tabletop. A man near the door, tie crooked from a rush, started to rise, sat down again as the screen blinked to life. "You think I'm afraid of the truth," the woman said, voice crisp, but her fingers tightened white over her phone. The man's voice was steady. "No, I think you're afraid of silence." No one seemed to breathe. The assistant whispered, "Should I keep going?" The CEO's reply was ice over stone. "You don't get to call the meeting." Every pair of eyes tracked the document on the screen, page after page blurring rapid, genetic proof webbed alongside signatures. The man closed his eyes for one slow second. "I'm still here." A single paper slid across the table toward her, landing between them. "Say my name," she said, almost under her breath. His reply didn't come. "Where you stand and what you do when the room finally goes quiet, these are the lines between truth and power. Stay with this story." It started 8 days before in the shadow of a hotel garden mower at noon. The engine coughed, hacked, and died halfway around the curve of the rose parterre, just as the sun broke through the suburban haze and caught a pale gloss on the sandpaper lining of Wes Dempsey's right palm. A cleanup detail had called in for overgrown brush, and he'd answered, wheeling the battered weed eater and a battered work cart past a gossamer silk SUV that didn't belong to any of the other service staff. His daughter, Lucy, 5 and impossibly upright in her favorite puffer vest, squatted behind the bubble of the glass doors, pressing the nose of her stuffed dog, the one with his old Dempsey patch sewn crookedly against the pane. She grinned. He managed a quiet thumbs up before sightlines forced him back to work. He adjusted his faded ball cap and thumbed the mower choke, jaw working. The two-stroke grunted and stuttered like a man who's lost his line in court. His phone buzzed, illuminating a text. "Pack up, you're done, effective now." The sender's name floated above, Property MGMT Direct, 4.5 minutes before payday. He set the phone face down on the bench and recounted silently what $71 meant. 11 days until the rent stood due, and change was down to coins between car seats. School fees for Lucy's aftercare would post before he could contest the direct deposit. One of the valets passed by whistling a tune from summer radio. He wiped his hand. The air smelled like cut grass and radiator oil. The email landed with the same finality as a judge's sentence, no cause stated. He didn't protest, not with Lucy watching. He simply stripped his gloves off, thumbed the switch on the mower one last time, and walked up the main steps, each leg remembering the landmine concussion from 15 years prior, vibrating faintly with every climb. Inside, the lobby's cold marble turned hostile as footsteps approached, heels clipped short, echoing farther than they should in a place meant for fleeting guests. The hotel owner paused, surveying him with the same glance she might give a remnant fleck of dirt. Her suit was a 1,000-thread blend, pale blue, tailored severe. "Did you read the message?" she said, no hint of conversation. He nodded steady. "Suppose I did, ma'am." "Then you know it's over. This is a boutique property. We require polish." He placed his gloves on the reception desk, orderly, knuckles down. "Your fertilizer was cross-linked with the wrong herbicide. Might want to flag the next shipment." She offered a cold, pinched smile. "Your job performance isn't our concern now." Lucy's hand flattened against the glass outside, the stuffed dog suspended in limp affection. Wes looked back at the owner. "Appreciate the months I had," each syllable measured, balanced. A bellhop shifted behind them, pretending not to listen. The owner watched Wee's face, hunting for a flinch. Not finding it, she lifted her phone. "Have security escort Mr. Dempsey and his child off premises." She didn't wait for a response but turned on her heel, immaculate in direction and intention. There would be no appeal, only the low murmur of the afternoon and the slow, deliberate steps of a man who had already learned the cost of words spent poorly. Lucy's reflection vanished as the sliding doors opened. He would not look back. Lucy was waiting by the curb, backpack braced on both shoulders, her knees poking from a skirt meant for an autumn that hadn't come soon enough to justify the chill. She offered her stuffed dog up for a squeeze and didn't ask why his eyes blinked longer between sentences than usual. He hitched her into the booster and buckled properly, every action a ritual against the frayed order of their days. Driving home, Lucy hummed too loud for the car's old speakers. The stuffed dog sat between them, his own name, Dempsey, worn at the seam. At the apartment, he set nutritious things out. An apple cut with the same pocket knife from his old trial days, carrot sticks, half a sandwich, a note, "You're enough always," tucked under the plastic wrap. She read it without ceremony and set the note, dog, and uneaten carrot together on the kitchen counter. Then she climbed onto the spindly kitchen chair, knees pressed tight, and looked at him as he scrounged through the mail pile. Her question arrived plainly. "Daddy, are you always going to be tough?" He considered folding the overdue water bill, but his hands instead found the laces of her shoe to tie. "Not every day," he finally replied, voice pitched low. She reached over, tugged the sleeve of his work shirt. "Did you see the red flower today with the sleepy bee?" We tried to conjure the image, something vivid from earlier, but his brain spun out into static. The tang of cut grass and the faint click of distant machinery blurred together. Flash, a memory, his late wife standing block-legged in the hospital room, a smile drawn thin against the ivy tree, saying, "That kind of scar does not need a witness." The perfume bottle she'd left behind sat, capless, on the bathroom shelf, never touched but never absent. Yeah, he managed. The bee was there too. Lucy patted her stuffed dog's head, as if confirming a diagnosis. Later, as twilight quartered the room, he switched out his work pants, folded the income withdrawal notification away, and opened a narrow drawer. Inside, beneath a folded court brief and an inked sketch of Lady Justice, lay a plastic medical bracelet and his own law license card, face down. He closed the drawer, no reason to explain regrets when bedtime waited. Before she slept, he tucked her in with the dog and recited a pattern, "Love you more, sweet pea." Her eyes crinkled. "Write so many notes tomorrow. Write me a note that says, 'Be crazy brave.'" He promised he would. Outside, he split his last $5 for the neighbor's overloaded laundry, just before the woman next door offered a tired "thank you" in exchange for help with her groceries. Some debts weren't counted in cash or time. He slept in a chair, the kitchen light a perimeter. Some habits remained, no matter the uniform. 3 floors above, in an apartment glassed in 3 directions, Cassandra Rowe ran a fingertip around the rim of her empty wine glass. The skyline glowed silk linen over the country club's greens, neon snaking into the suburbs, lights stretching to where children's voices no longer reached. She checked her phone, 12 missed messages, a calendar stacked with overlapping mandatory blocks, a call from her mother's private number she had declined out of habit. She said, "Bring me tomorrow's projection," to the assistant leaning against the kitchen counter. He answered, "It's finished." "You're late, send it now." Her voice did not fluctuate. On the sideboard, a plain walnut frame faced away from guests, in it 2 young faces. Her father and herself, before either had learned how silence could sharpen a man to a point. The assistant set down a file, careful not to clatter the glass. Cassandra scanned through, new departures, a labor dispute, the fading margin on the hotel arm. She tapped the page. "Resolve this, fast." He tried an answer, she cut him off. No explanation, just resolution. Later, alone, she opened the bottom drawer and between contracts and birth certificates in another woman's name, she found a faded photograph. A woman in a housekeeper's uniform beside a grinning child. The date, almost invisible, was the winter before her father's accident. A knock at her door, the board's fixer carrying a manila folder. "About the Dempsey man, ma'am, he's out, no pushback." She didn't turn, "Stay ahead of schedule," and then almost reflexively, "What did he want?" The fixer paused, nothing, left quietly, the girl with him too. Her jaw tensed. "Send the compliance reports direct and reroute security checks tonight." She didn't glance up. The fixer hesitated, studied her for half a breath, then nodded and withdrew. Cassandra folded the photograph. The edge of a hospital bracelet poked from beneath her own initials on a birth record, her mother S. She placed the photo atop the stack, expression unreadable. Her gaze flicked again to the empty wine glass. Some absences were sharper for never being named. The day broke with cloudless ambition and a knot of guests queued for an eco-summit presentation in the hotel's conference gardens. A monitor on the tented stage blinked objections in static, while a digital display cycled through impossibly sleek renderings of green first properties. Lucy's fingers pinched his elbow as Weeze joined the outside maintenance crew to repatch wilting hydrangeas along the south path. The company had called one job, no contract, but pay for an afternoon's work. He noticed her in the crowd, clipboard drawn to her hip, as Cassandra delivered directions. In the main tent, the digital presentation flickered. The hotel's newly purchased sustainability projection, meant to wow officials, wouldn't load. Their best IT crew waved off the glitch, then panicked as some slides crashed, passwords corrupted, ransomware detected signals blinking up in corner windows. The assistant, voice wavering, called out, "Is anyone here good with the old admin system?" Silence. We stepped forward, wiping grass stains from his palm, and spoke evenly. "You're reading off the backup, but the breach is in the lateral process, not the admin core." Heads turned. He reached the laptop. With 3 clicks and a wordless code shift, he rebuilt the kernel, restoring green bars across the screen. "It's not the admin controls. Check your storage key rotation," he said. The head tech, momentarily frozen, hovered over his shoulder, then stepped back. The projector blinked to life, slides queued up seamless. The assistant gulped air, pen trembling at his notepad. How did you know?" "Just a pattern I've seen before," Weeze replied. Cassandra entered, immaculate and unamused. "That's resolved then. Anyone with eyes can see the solution." A junior IT worker, fingers shaking, whispered to the assistant, "That algorithm, no one's used it here since the Sanderson audit." The assistant scribbled a note, darting a glance at Cassandra, who remained poised, lips thin. "Thank him and pay him for the hour," she said to the assistant. But as the guests applauded the recovered presentation, Weeze gathered his work bag and started toward the back gate. Behind him, the assistant watched. There was a question brewing in the man's eyes. He had seen this pattern, vague but insistent, years earlier, in the shadow of appellate benches and headlines that had faded too soon. He had seen this before, 20 years ago. The assistant, John, spent the evening with his phone pressed close, the glow making uncertain shadows across the kitchen table. He searched the company rosters, backtracking staff changes, then tangent struck, searched legal filings, first local then statewide. Nothing fit. No Weeze Dempsey with a digital footprint. But a name pattern: William E. Dempsey, disbarment never filed, one-time appellate counsel on a civil rights class action, a lost case that changed a statute but cost a career. On a hunch, John called a friend at the county registry. "You remember Dempsey? Guy from the hospital filings." His friend paused. "He took on the Rothridge case, right? Everyone thought he'd vanish after." John said nothing, writing fast. Elsewhere, dusk pooled in the corners of the small apartment. Lucy leaned over her school letterboard, arranging block numbers. She asked, "Daddy, did you ever fix something that nobody said thank you for?" He scrubbed a plate for a second too long, suds sighing under fingers. "More than I can count," he finally said. She studied the stuffed dog, tracing the big black letters. "But if someone saw you, do you think they'd be happy or mad?" We set the plate on the rack. He hesitated, then crouched beside her. "Sometimes people aren't ready to see the whole story yet, even if it's written right in front." She nodded, unconvinced, then whispered, "We can write more notes, maybe for us." Lucy pressed the dog's patched stomach to her own, a portable truth. Meanwhile, John scrolled, frantic as time drew tighter. The hotel's legacy green patent, its only edge before the commission's review, was to expire in 8 days. Without an extension, the Eco Summit star outcome would become open game for rival developers. The filing log shuddered with reminders. He texted another staffer, "If the inventor defaults, can the hotel refile?" The reply, "No, only original or valid transfer." John's pulse tapped 2 beats faster. A black SUV idled by the curb outside Wee's apartment, engine too quiet for an old model. From inside, a suited man checked a list, then stepped to the front door. When John answered, the man's request was measured. "We'll require your signature to confirm non-disclosure. Compliance immediate." John squared his shoulders. "I'm not signing, I only saw what's public." "Not optional," the man's eyes never left John's. "What are you so afraid I'll see?" The man's jaw fixed. "I'm not here to argue." John tugged open the door wider. "You're not welcome." The man measured, then retreated. Later, John called Wee's, voice low. "Whatever you are, they're trying to silence it, but I don't think you're the problem." Wee spoke quietly. "I fix what I can. Thank you for trying to help." John hesitated. "We can't let the patent expire." "I know," Wee's tone flat, but something shifted beneath. "Don't worry about the rest." He hung up. Outside, Lucy's drawing, penned "Be Crazy Brave" in colored marker, waited by the door. The pressure bristled, new tension tight as wire. Next day, Cassandra felt the shift. Contracts flagged, regulatory files duplicated, someone in filings questioned her authority over the eco patent. She brisk-walked the lobby, heels hammering floor tile. In her mind, the gap narrowed. Only Dempsey and his witness could have left such a mark. She dialed the building manager for the lawn service company. "Blacklist him, don't assign work near my properties again." The reply came hesitant. "He's only temp labor, not on formal roles." She hung up. In the public lounge, with afternoon drinks humming and board members idling, she spotted Wees. He was fixing a drip near the main bar, hands submerged in a rusted fixture. She approached, voice pitched for effect, still hoping for another recommendation. He didn't rise, only turned and wiped moisture on his sleeve. "Just stopping a leak, not every fix is a promotion." She smiled thinly. "You think you know my operations better than I do? Last week was a fluke, don't make this a pattern." A junior boardwoman nearby quizzed, "Is this the man who recovered the patent draft?" Cassandra suppressed a tick. "He's here for the fixtures, not the futures, that's all." We's finished securing the replacement pipe, then straightened. He nodded to the junior boardwoman, tone polite. "I'll be quick." She studied him as if searching for a code behind the eyes. Elsewhere, John worked the phone. "Found it, Wees. Draft refile expires in 7 days. You're listed as advisory contact." Wees replied, "Thank you." The call was brief. In the parallel hours, Lucy sat cross-legged in her classroom, coloring letters into her paper lunch bag. A teacher's aide, distracted by new security protocols, forgot to announce the bus time. Lucy, ignored, waited until the end, watching each parent collect their child until only one shadow remained in the hall. Wees arrived late that afternoon, apology unsaid but manifest in the way he bent to her level. She offered the stuffed dog, saying quietly, "Nobody said my name when roll call finished, but he waited with me." He hugged her, felt the seam of the old cloth under his chin. Sometimes the waiting is its own kind of brave. A man can hold composure for others until pressure finds its way through the quiet. Cassandra called her compliance head, voice clipped to the bone. "Shut every backdoor, notify the commission I'm not accepting alternate offers." The head's reply was careful. "Ma'am, the inventor must refile himself." Cassandra barked, then force his hand or remove his name. She cut the call, temple pulsing, as the mentor who had, for years, built the hotel family upon veiled trust lines dialed her private line. Outside, Wees pressed send on a message. "This is Dempsey. Yes, you can come now." His voice was neutral, every line on his face sharp as confession. He should not have made this her problem. Evening cut the edge off the day's heat as the hotel's grand conference chamber filled for the Eco Summit's final session. The board, key investors, regulators, even state dignitaries pressed in, faces bristling with expectation, all seats severe, lights overhead more spotlight than welcome. Cassandra entered trailing sharp intent, assistant in her wake. She announced, "Before we proceed, there is a matter of authorship to resolve." Wees arrived a beat later, invited by John, whose face quivered with excitement and nerves. Gone was the lawn-stained work shirt. In its place, a collared dress shirt under a neutral jacket, and on his wrist, a battered watch, its band stitched at the seam. The assistant placed 2 files in the center of the table. We have received proof of patent origin. He connected a drive to the projector. On the screen, transfers, dates, then a drawn family tree, lines and nodes culminating in 2 names. We's noticed the last page, a sealed D and a record stamped official. Cassandra gripped the armrest. A senior board member, graying and immaculate, stood. There has been an omission in disclosure requirements. Miss Rowe, please review the exhibit on screen. On the display, a slide, a birth certificate, a name erased and another cross-indexed, Dempsey under father unknown. The whisper rippled through the room. Cassandra's jaw tightened, hand braced over her phone. These documents are fake. I have always acted on behalf of the hotel's best interest. This is beneath all of you. Wees responded gently. I never asked for any seat. You took what belonged to my work. My daughter knew her name, even if you never learned it. Lucy's stuffed dog, Patch Dempsey, sat on the table, a quiet rebuke. Assistant John, voice faint, announced, direct confirmation from the registrar arrived. Lineage is proven. The patent returns to him by statute. All eyes on Cassandra, whose color sagged out from her jaw, dread pooling under her eyes. The mentor's call connected. Cassandra answered, voice fractured. The board listened in silence as the voice on speaker, velvet and implacable, said, I am disappointed. This is not the legacy your father intended. Consider your status rescinded. Assistant looked down. The junior boardwoman thumbed a ring, head bent. A journalist, ready for a quote, let his mouth drop open, then closed his notebook. Cassandra's pulse hammered, hands at rest for the first time since acquiring the hotel. Words caught in her throat, then fell away. She spoke, drained, she's your responsibility, not mine. No answer came from Wheeze, only silence so complete it felt like a verdict. 6 months later, Lucy moved in circles along the edge of her new classroom carpet. Paper note tucked behind the stuffed dog's ears, this one reading in her father's careful print, be as brave as you want. In the hall, John shook hands with the head of facilities, now upgraded to operations manager, as he organized lunch for the regional coordinator's granddaughter. He smiled at Wheeze in passing, nodding with something more than deference. Cassandra no longer occupied the hotel's top floor. Her name remained on no new contracts, leaving a space where ambition had driven legacy. At home, Lucy pressed a new note into her father's lunch bag. Daddy, do you ever get tired now? He smiled, genuine, only when you're not around to remind me. Even as the world continued, 2 truths remained. Names can be hidden, but worth will make itself known, letter by letter. It is not the title you claim at the opening of a meeting, but the line you stand ready to cross for someone you love, even when nobody's left to see it. The sun teetered on the edge of afternoon, throwing shafts across the playground blacktop. The laughter of children ringed the schoolyard, but Lucy wandered by herself behind the art classroom, tracing shapes in the dust with her shoe. Dempsey the dog dangled from her grip, ears trailing tiny rainbows as she spun him in slow circles. Wheeze waited at the gate, gift bag in hand. Inside, colored pencils, a new sketchbook, and a sandwich wrapped in a napkin that read in marker, "Let your story be messy." When Lucy saw him, she sprinted across the asphalt and landed, arms outstretched in his embrace. "Did you bring it?" she asked, brown eyes lit with the thrill only found in 8-year-olds promised a surprise. He knelt, offering the bag with one formal flourish. "I promised every note you ever wanted. Let's go home and make more, huh?" She grinned wide, missing tooth on display. "I'm gonna fill all the pages, even the covers." Wheeze rose, slinging her backpack over his shoulder. Maybe save a page or 2 for someone else's story. They made their way down the sidewalk, Lucy skipping, narrating Dempsey the dog's imagined adventures. Clouds that ran faster than airplanes, gratitude lists drawn like treasure maps, and a hero who could fix leaks in the sky with strips of courage and tape. As they crossed through the apartment's iron gate, the world felt suddenly impossibly broad. Upstairs, a stack of legal papers waited on Wee's kitchen counter, clipped beneath a letter from the State Commission. Patent awarded, owner of record, William E. Dempsey. The rest was bureaucratic, deadlines, transfer options, some lawyer's scrawl for L. Dempsey minor. He set the files aside, focusing on sharpening a colored pencil for Lucy. From the living room, Lucy called, "I want to draw the hotel's garden. You remember the red flowers?" His reply was instant, "Still see them every time I close my eyes." Lucy spread out on the floor, pressing colored shapes until petals burst from the page. "I think I was the only one who saw how sleepy the bee was," she whispered. "Well," we said, folding onto the rug beside her, "maybe there'll be more bees and more flowers now that the garden's in kinder hands." Lucy nodded fiercely, then scribbled a sun in the corner, all yellow hope and looping rays. A tap sounded on the door. Wheeze tensed, then relaxed when John's voice floated from the other side. "Hey, Wheeze, you decent." Lucy hopped up first, fumbling the lock with both hands. "Hi, Mr. John," she chimed. John ducked in, eyebrows quirked, suit jacket slung over his arm. "You two look busy." Very, Wheeze deadpanned, gesturing to the colored chaos. John set a paper bag on the table. "I brought cookies." He surveyed the room, then fixed on the patent papers. "Getting used to your name on those yet?" We shrugged, a slow curl at the edge of his mouth. "Some days, yes. Some days it feels like I borrowed the good news from someone else's story." John took a chair, voice soft. "You know, the environmental group wants your input on a citywide initiative. Sustainability consult. You don't have to say yes, but they're asking." Lucy's head popped up. "Will there be gardens?" "Lots of them," John replied, grinning. She glanced at Wheeze. "Then you should go. You can write notes for the whole city." Wheeze let out a rolling chuckle and looked across at John. "I'll think about it. I promise to help with a very important art project first." The conversation unfurled like a ribbon: garden designs, new playgrounds, a lunchroom with less plastic and more sunlight. Lucy drew a page for every idea, gutting her pencil to stubs. A comfortable silence drifted between the three as afternoon faded, the kind only found in places fighting forward from old wounds. Elsewhere, 3 blocks away and 7 stories up, Cassandra Rowe stared at a mirror that refused to soften her image. The room was smaller than her old suite. No marble entryway, no silent staff waiting for direction, just white walls and the relentless tick of a thrift store clock. Her laptop screen glowed blue, open on a blank resume document. A message pinged from her mother: "Hope you are well, call when ready." Cassandra pressed her eyes shut, the edges of lost sleep pulled tight across her face. For the first time, maybe since her father had died, there was no template, no agenda, no achievement to point her. There was only herself and the inventory of choices she could no longer silence. She opened a browser, unconsciously typing her own name. News links fluttered, new management at the hotel, old business partners congratulating the board, a photo of him, Lucy beside him, holding a cardboard sign that read, "Welcome, Future Green." She stared hardest at Lucy's uneven letters, not at Wee's poised, tired smile. A phone vibrated near her elbow, a call from a lawyer she'd ignored for days. She considered letting it ring, then slowly she picked up. "This is Cassandra Rowe." "Miss Rowe, Jenna from Fairchild and Associates. There's an offer for your consulting, property reorganization, not management. They wanted your experience if you're interested." Cassandra sat, body tight but voice even. "Send the details." She paused, uncertain for once. "Thank you." "Of course, Miss Rowe, one more thing. Our client asked if you had ideas for greener transitions. They saw your summit notes." Cassandra blinked. "I have some thoughts. I'll start a draft." The call ended. For the first time, uncertainty felt tolerable. A blank slate, neither defeat nor new title, but a beginning. She allowed herself a measured breath, then began to type, skipping the template, choosing her own words. In the following days, the hotel garden changed. The new director of facilities hired local students for planting, hands dirty, laughter sharp over wheelbarrows. Old staff stopped by, some drawn by curiosity, some by hope, all by memory. Lucy brought her father on Saturdays, standing on tiptoe to tug at the gloves dragging past her knees. "Let's plant a blue one," she'd say, "or maybe the bees are brave, too." Weeze replied with patience, falling into the rhythm of planting, soft soil, gentle hands, quiet advice for awkward shovels. Each evening, he left a note beside the front desk for the night porter: "Don't forget to water near the steps. Thank you for helping gardens grow." At the library up the street, Cassandra attended her first community group, a round table of former rivals, all elbows and strong opinions. When it was her turn, she raised her hand, fingers trembling, and suggested a program to teach children the economics of solar panels. No one discounted the idea, no one scoffed at the source. Afterward, she lingered at the door, watching a father coax a girl in pigtails through reading her favorite story aloud. The child stumbled on the word "sufficient," but the man's patience was infinite, a constant presence instead of a driving force. Cassandra pressed her palm flat to her phone, contemplating a message, then let her hand fall. She watched until the pair left, slow at first, then guiding each other through the uncertain twilight. On the morning of Wee's first city council consult, he ironed his shirt with an anxious precision. Lucy chased after her own shoes, brandishing a new sign: "Good luck, Daddy." "Aren't you nervous?" she asked, spinning in her socks. He pulled her beside him as he knotted his tie. "A little, but I've stood in tougher rooms and I always come home to you." She beamed. "Be crazy brave," she whispered, forehead pressed to his. At the council's chambers, familiar faces lined the benches: activists, school teachers, rival lawyers, all jostling for an edge. John met him outside, offering coffee and a squeeze at the elbow. "This is the good noise," John said, "the one you make on purpose." We smiled, remembering the hush of lost trials and the silence that used to crowd out the last word. Today, though, the silence was his to shape. Inside, voices ramped up, proposal after proposal. When Weeze was called, he moved to the dais, Lucy's card in his pocket. "I've learned," he began, clear and slow, "that sometimes all it takes is one patient hand to patch what others only talk about fixing. I lost a lot before I learned where to put my repairs. But if we start with what we share, gardens, air, kids who want to see bees, maybe we build something nobody will want to tear down." There were questions, some sharp, some meant to trip him. He met each with the calm of a man used to argument, not for winning, but for understanding. He quoted Lucy, "Make room for messy stories because that's where hope starts." It landed, uncomfortable for some, but undeniable. One by one, council members nodded. A vote was called, the initiative passed, not unanimous, but honest. Outside, Weeze called Lucy from under a plane tree. "Guess what? We get to build more gardens." Her shriek of glee was all he needed for confirmation. Cassandra watched the news clip that night, Wee's face clear, his words soft, cutting through spin. She sat for a long time, then finally drafted a message. "Weeze, congratulations. For the record, I was wrong about you. I hope there are more gardens and more notes than you ever thought possible. See." She hovered over send, then let it go. The reply came an hour later. "Thank you, Cassandra. There's always more room for brave beginnings. If you ever want to visit, Lucy says the red flowers are still her favorite." For the first time in a long while, she let herself cry. Not because she had lost, but because, just maybe, she finally understood what mattered. Autumn's edge arrived on a morning crisp with possibility. Outside the hotel, Lucy knelt next to a new patch of dirt, coaxing seeds into rows. The operations team watched as she drew labels with bright markers. "Sunflowers, be brave," "Clover, for luck," "Red poppies, because bees need naps, too." We stood behind, hands in his pockets, not directing, just watching small stories take root. John arrived with an armful of mulch. "What's today's lesson?" he grinned. Lucy pointed to her sign. "Let everything grow, even the mistakes." John laughed, passing her a trowel. "You might be the smartest boss we've ever had." The morning unfolded in shared effort and gentle disorder. Dirt smudges, laughter between rows, small arguments over which color belonged where. A journalist new to the city approached Weeze. "You're the patent holder who wouldn't play by the old rules. Why gardens and why stay here?" We set down his shovel slowly, looking out across the blooming beds. Because sometimes roots matter more than reach. This was never about a name or a patent. It's about leaving space for someone else's bravery to take hold after you're gone. The journalist scribbled furiously, but Lucy sidled up, whispering, "You should write that down too, for us." As seasons unspooled, a year folding gently over memory, Wee's and Lucy's home filled with colored slips on every surface. Try anyway, love is the fix, no fault in brave. Cassandra's new work intersected with the city's garden plan, and at the first harvest festival, she stood beside Wee's, no formal greeting exchanged, just a quiet, mutual nod of respect. Children painted faces in the shade of the newly planted trees. John directed music, the operations staff lined up for pie, and a circle formed around the bee garden as Lucy released the summer's first butterfly. We's watched with a peace that no verdict, title, or dismissal could ever give. Once his life was held tight by rules, then silence. Now it yielded to the messy, loud brilliance of what comes after. As dusk slid down the city's edges, Lucy pressed her final note of the day into her father's hand. Never stop fixing, even when it's only sunshine you can borrow. He smiled, holding her close as the garden lights flickered on, and the world, for a moment, felt full enough for every name and every hope to blossom. The end.